Hey everybody, welcome to English Champion. On this episode, I'm going to divert a bit from stuff I normally talk about regarding English and the world of education. And there's something else kind of near and dear to my heart, or at least it used to be, that has been discussed out in the popular culture, and I thought I would weigh in because many of the people talking about it are saying important things, but I feel like they're also missing something very valuable that should be part of the conversation. So we're going to dive into that here today. So what is this thing that is so important that I need to break from what I usually talk about to discuss? The state of basketball here in America is becoming a big problem, and it was made most evident this past weekend by the absolutely horrendous All-Star weekend. And this is not the first time. It's been like this for quite a while, and the All-Star game is kind of the most egregious example of the state of basketball, because everything that is going on in basketball kind of gets distilled down in its absolute worst form during the All-Star break. And the All-Star game is exceptionally bad. So there's been all sorts of sports commentators and other podcasters and people commenting on the state of the NBA right now, and especially in light of the recent All-Star events. And like I said, a lot of them they offer good analysis and they're hitting on some really important issues. But I think there's something even bigger that we really need to talk about. And it's going to be a little academic here because that's who I am. So I apologize for getting a little high-minded here and philosophical. But I feel like it's really valuable for us to understand this if we're going to save these cultural institutions such as sports that really have had good influences on us over the years and help shape our lives and influence children and get us excited and strengthen communities and all that stuff that sports can do. If we're not careful, we're going to lose that in various sports. Not all sports are having these problems, but we are in a bit of a danger zone, I feel like, with many sports, and basketball, because that's the sport I grew up playing most, and I've gone on to coach at college and high school levels, and even still do some coaching now. These are the problems I'm seeing, and we need to get back to some real fundamentals about what sports are, and I want to talk about those for a little while here today. As I've said before on this channel, I was a college professor for many years, and one of the courses I built was on sports and literature with my playing background and then coaching background. Combining that with my literary background, I created a course that combined sports with the greatest stories and greatest art from our culture. And it also was sort of a, not just literature class, but kind of a philosophy and psychology class too. It's really about the development of people and culture, and then the representation of it in an artistic form, and how sports can be, when you look at it in a unique way, it can be tied to all of those things. And so that's why sports are so valuable. And in that class, in the very first lecture, actually, which is available for free online, you can hear me talking about we need to have a very clear understanding of what sport is. And in a specific case, in this episode, what basketball is. And Plato, the philosopher, was big on trying to get to the very root of what something is. And so he was constantly like, well, what is justice? What is truth? What is love? All these complicated, abstract ideas. He wanted to define, what do these actually mean? When we're trying to understand ourselves and reality, we need to know what things mean. And in knowing what they mean, then we can figure out, well, what's the best version of that? If this is like the minimal definition, its basic existence is this, well, how do we aim at the highest version of that? And so in order to aim at anything excellent, we have to at least know what it is we're talking about. So if we're going to find what's the best form of a just society, well, we have to get to the root of what justice actually is, from a moral perspective, from a legal perspective, from a philosophical perspective. Whatever the topic is, we have to know what it is so that we can aim at the best version, so that we can all be our best versions of ourselves and we can try to create better societies. But definitions are very important, so we have to know what sport is. And in this case, what basketball is. And really, what I talk about in that class, and we spend a unit talking about Field of Dreams, and the book it's based on, Shoeless Joe. And one of the things that sport is we have to have an agreement that you can never cheat. That book and that movie are about what happens if you cheat. what's how do people remember you? What lessons should we learn from being deceitful as an athlete? And what we see in that book and that movie is that it ruins everything. All right, your reputation is completely destroyed. In fact, in sport is very forgiving. We will forgive people who have drug and alcohol addictions. We will have forgive people who have gone to prison for violent crimes and other types of crimes. Like, we'll forgive you if you are remorseful and then you come back and you're a good teammate or a good citizen or whatever. We'll let you keep playing and try again. But if you cheat, you're out. That's sort of the rule. Whether that's right or wrong for some people, maybe it's too harsh for some people. But what history has shown us that if you are caught cheating, you are done. So it happened to Shoeless Joe, of course, happened to Pete Rose, and various other people. But it's the ultimate crime. It's the ultimate sin in sport. Why is that? The reason is because if we find out you're cheating, and that you already know who's going to win the game because you've set up a way to rig it in some way, then the game doesn't mean anything anymore. And if the game doesn't mean anything anymore, and the mystery of who might win is taken away, then there's no reason to play it, and the sport or the activity dissolves and it can't exist. Okay, so what sport is it's based on one key principle, which is you have to play it honestly, and we all start from the same. The clock starts at the same place for everybody, and we all play according to the rules, and you do not try to lose on purpose, and you do your best to not break the rules while you play. Okay? So cheating is completely forbidden, and if you do it in an egregious way, you will be out. And the reason why is because if everyone does that, the game falls apart. It can't exist anymore. So cheating is the ultimate sin because of that reason. The game can only exist if it's played honestly. Another thing that sport is that has to be a part of it is not only the cheating part. This isn't quite as serious as cheating, but it's up there. That is, you have to play your best. At least it has to look like you're trying hard. Because if you aren't, again, it takes away what the whole point of sport is. The whole point of sport is that you have people competing and trying to win or trying to play their best, to perform the skills, to interact with their teammates, to play by the rules, to all the things that make up that activity. You have to try your best at it. And if we as the viewers can tell, or the participants themselves can tell, that the people are not trying their hardest, at some point, the viewers or the participants themselves are going to go, yeah, what are we even doing this for? This is dumb. We're all just out here goofing around. I'd rather be at home relaxing, or I'd rather spend time with my family, or I'd rather be out doing some other activity, because none of us are taking this seriously, so what are we doing here? And then it disappears, because it can't exist if the people aren't willingly participating at a reasonably high level. So that's what's happening with the NBA right now. It's not the cheating part, but the second part. It's noticeable to everyone that you guys do not care about this. Why you don't care could be a million different reasons, and each player is going to have to decide that for themselves. But there's a lot of apathy going on, and we can tell by the way you play that none of this matters to you. And you might think, well, who cares? I got my giant salary. I'm on television. I get my endorsements. Whatever. I got mine. Okay, but the fans are the ones who have a different view of everything. Okay, fans view sports. Because they're not the athletes. They view it as an identification with, we believe you're a part of us. And after all, I go to work every day and do my best to help my students, or to help my company, or to help my community, or whatever it is that people do. I'm a hard worker. And when you're at your job, I expect you to be a hard worker too. And I expect you to entertain me because that's what we're paying you for. And it should be fun that you enjoy playing and I enjoy watching, and we all get something out of this. But it's all predicated on the fact that you actually try and you care about this. So if you're not doing that, then why would I identify with you, and why would I watch you? And if you don't have people watching, you're not going to have a league very, very much longer. So this is where we're at, is from the regular season, even into the playoffs, viewership at all levels of preseason, regular season, playoffs is down. The All-Star game is an abomination because everyone can tell you guys don't care about this. So we have to get back to our basic fundamentals of what sport is, And built into the fabric of sport is that you are going to try your best at this. And yes, we all know that people are going to rest and people are going to take time off and take plays off and all that sometimes. But in general, we need to think that you're actually trying out there. And part of that is, again, the All-Star game is the worst because there's no defense, there's no strategy, there's no effort at all. People walk around, they're shooting crazy shots. Everyone just lets everyone dunk. It's stupid. That doesn't look like basketball. And so the effort part of it is enormous. And again, it's the very fabric of what sport is. We have to know that you're trying. And if you're not going to, let's get someone else in there who will, because that's way more fun to watch. So let's do that instead. And so the sport itself is having a problem with defining what it is and living up to that. The other thing to think about on a more specific scale of what basketball is that, in defining that sport, it's unique because it's different than football. I tell my players, it's different than football and baseball because in football, you only play one side of the ball. You're only responsible for defense or for offense. And then you have your position. So, if you're a lineman, you don't even get to run down the field. You never throw a ball, you never catch a ball, you never carry a ball, you never even tackle people. You just block for an hour. That's what you do. You do one thing. All right? Now, I'm not diminishing it that those guys are very good athletes, but like the sport of football is you have an assignment and you do that thing. All right? Baseball, a little bit similar. When you're a left fielder, that means you're not pitching. That means you're not catching. You're a left fielder. You stay in that place. And it's one reason why I've always hated the DH, is the DH diminishes what baseball should be. Baseball should be guys who can run and throw and catch and hit. And everyone has to do those things because that's what baseball is. Running, throwing, catching, hitting. And even pitchers have to hit because that's part of the game of baseball. Well, a DH doesn't have to do the defensive side of the game. That's dumb. The game of baseball is set up for each player, even though they're in their position, to have to do all of those skills. Well, the DH kind of ruins that. So we have to think, well, what is basketball? Well, basketball is unique because every player, all 5 players on the court, have to do everything. Even if you have your position, you can move anywhere, so you're not like a left fielder who just stands in left field, or a pitcher who stands on the pitcher's mound. You run everywhere on the court. All right, so movement is a key part of basketball. You also have to do all of the skills. So even though you're a center and you think, I'm just going to stay close to the basket. Well, at some point in the game, you're going to have to dribble a little bit. At some point in the game, you're going to have to pass. You're going to have to play defense. You're going to have to shoot a free throw every once in a while. You have to do everything on the court. So whether you're a little guy or a big guy, everyone does everything. So that's what makes basketball great. It's an ultimate team game in that everyone's responsible for everything all the time. And it has free flow of movement, both in the half court and the full court. You can go anywhere. And again, everyone does a little bit of everything. And so that's what was the appeal for me growing up. I played all sports. I ended up being too small to play football. I got bored with baseball because you just stand around a lot. And I liked the free-flowing movement of basketball where everyone does everything. So that's what basketball definitionally is. Now, there's a variety of ways that you can play basketball. Obviously, there's different styles, and you can adjust your positions and all that stuff. But we have to get back to remembering, what is basketball? It's a game where players move a lot, and they have to demonstrate a variety of skills at any point in the game. Not just sometimes, but at any moment, you could have to play defense, you could have to play offense, you could have to dribble, you could have to pass, you could have to shoot. So you have to do all of it. And basketball today is getting to a place where you don't have to do hardly any of it. All you need to do is stand on a three-point line and shoot. That's it. You don't have to be a good passer. You don't have to play any defense. You just get to the three-point line and shoot. Now, there's always been specialists, growing up where I did, the Bulls were the closest team to my hometown. So, I watched, that was the team on television every night. And yeah, Craig Hodges and later Steve Kerr, those guys are kind of specialists where, okay, yeah, you're a shooter. But again, in basketball, you're going to be called upon to guard people. And you're going to have to dribble and pass sometimes. And you're not just going to be able to shoot threes. You're going to have to maybe shoot, in the paint or at the free throw line. You have to be ready for that. Well, now we've become so specialized and the game has become so based on analytics that now everyone just shoots threes and the game is super, super boring. And that's added on to the fact that defense is awful and the effort is awful. So the game itself, from a definitional standpoint, has started to crumble. And it's been going on for a good 20 years now, and I don't know how much longer it can last. And, the All-Star game is, like I said, the worst version of that. But it doesn't stop at the All-Star game. It's all of basketball. And it's not just the NBA. This is happening at all levels because they watch the NBA and younger coaches, they follow the analytics stuff too. And so they're like, oh, well, we'll just do this because that's what the pros do. And we want to help our kids play at the next level. So I guess this is what we'll do. And we're ruining the game of basketball, literally the game part of it. And it's just not good. So we got to get back to the definition of the game itself. Now, what are some of the reasons for how it's gotten to be this way? Jason Whitlock in the last couple of days has been really good on this. He's said some things that I think are right on, which is one of the reasons, not the whole reason, but I think it's a big factor, is in the last 20 years, the idea of players being one and done or jumping straight from high school to the pros has become, almost everyone does it now. There's very rarely guys who stay 4 or even 3 years in college. And so, well, what does that do to the NBA? Well, when you go through a system like college, where, yes, if you're a great player, everyone knows you out of high school and all the top colleges are recruiting you. And now the NIL stuff is making it even more that way, where you can demand things at a young age and ask for millions of dollars, even though you haven't played college basketball yet. And so it's getting worse. But what college does for you is it forces you to be part of a system where you're not the most important thing. All right. Not everyone caters to you because the head coach is in charge, and the head coach has a job to do, which is to have a team and to try to compete, for a national championship. And all the while, you're also supposed to be going to school. So you and your ego have to take a back seat because you have to do these other things like continue your education, and you have to be part of a system. Whereas when you're in high school and you're the big shot on campus and everyone thinks you're special and you're getting on magazines when you're 16 and you're about to be drafted and have a $300 million contract thrown at you and you're again 16, 17, maybe 18 years old, like you're the center of the universe. Well, the college level, that's not really how it is. Even if you're the best player on your team or the best player in the country, you have to be part of the group. And that's a valuable lesson for people when you're playing a team sport. You have to be part of the group. And at the high school level, one guy can kind of take over a game and single-handedly win. That doesn't happen at college. Even the best players, once you come up against a good team, you're going to struggle. Larry Bird carried his team to the finals. Carmelo Anthony, was, I guess, the superstar who carried his team to a championship. But many instances of one player being great, if they face a team that's truly a great team, they struggle. And that's what college teaches you. You have to be part of a team. And so then you have to pay your dues. And even Michael Jordan stayed in college 3 years. And the old joke, who's the only person that could keep Michael Jordan under 20 points a game? Dean Smith, his college coach, because he had to be part of a system. And you learn how to know your role and get along with people and kind of earn the respect of people around you. And that has all been completely eliminated now because these young kids who enter the NBA, they demand respect because they're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. They haven't done anything yet against the best players in the world anyway. And yet they believe they deserve all that acclaim and the rewards that come with it. So if you already feel that way, you already feel like you're so special and you have all the money you could ever want and doesn't matter, what team you're on, if you're a free agent next year or whatever, like all that mentality, why would you be loyal to a team? Why would you try to win a championship? Why would you try to improve your skills as they relate to your team? You wouldn't. You don't care. You're like, I'm just out here. I'll try and score because scoring's fun and scoring might give me another shoe deal or, a contract extension or whatever. But like the winning part, the playing hard, playing defense part, who cares? Doesn't matter. Yeah, because you haven't had to be, put in a kind of a hierarchy or a system where you had to fit in with other people. You've been the superstar your whole life, and that's LeBron James, and I'm not a fan of his because of that. Like this amazing game was handed to you that you could be the person who leads this game into the next, great version of itself for the next century. And you didn't. Why? Because that's what happens when you are the most popular person ever since you were 12 and everyone gives you everything you could ever want. You don't have to care about things. You don't have to play hard. You don't have to play defense. You don't have to work on your skills. It doesn't matter. So that's where we're at with the effort. And I think Whitlock is right. One of the big reasons for it is the game is just so young now, and guys coming to the league who don't know how to speak, they don't know how to dress, they don't know how to act, they don't know how to be a professional. And yeah, it's all about, do I look cool? Do I get my money? Do I get to hang out with rappers? Like that's what people care about, and it's unsustainable as we're seeing. The viewership is declining. No one cares, and it doesn't matter if you're a superstar. The league is falling apart, and the All-Star Game is the example, the strongest and weirdest example of that. So there's a variety of people who have been highlighting important things. I think that's a really key one from Jason Whitlock. Something else that the NBA is losing track of is, I was listening to a podcast, I don't know, a year or so ago, and it was Chuck Klosterman and somebody else. I apologize for whoever he was talking to, but I like him as a writer, and so I was listening to a podcast with him, and they were talking about sports, among other topics in that conversation. And I can't remember what specifically they were discussing, but the takeaway from it was this line that now I can't get out of my mind. It makes total sense for everything, and it's kind of obvious when you think about it, but the line is this: a thing has to be more than a thing if it's going to stay that thing. Okay? So plug in whatever you want for the thing, all right? So for example, a burger joint has to be more than a burger joint if it's going to stay in business as a burger joint. Okay? So out here in the West, In-N-Out Burger is more than a burger joint. Yeah, it's good food and it's cheap prices, but there's a relationship to Southern California or the Southwest in general that everyone identifies with. Everyone knows if you're going to get a burger in the southwest corner of the country, everyone should go to In-N-Out Burger because it's kind of who we are. And for a long time, McDonald's had that. That was the traditional place where families gathered to go have a cheap meal, and it was the first real fast food place and all that. Like there's a meaning behind it. Like there's a story behind it. And part of when you go to In-N-Out Burger is not only is the food good and the prices are good, but the staff there is incredibly polite, and they keep their restaurant very clean. And you look back and the workers are all hustling. Like there's a culture that I like being a part of, and why I go there more than any other burger joint is, yeah, the burgers are good and the price is right, but I also like what it represents. It's more than just a burger joint when I go there. It's an experience that I like being a part of. And so the same thing happens with anything. A school has to be more than a school if it's going to stay in business as a school. A sport has to be more than a sport if it's going to remain a sport. And so in that conversation I was listening to, they were talking about it's not just 9 guys on a diamond, running around and throwing a ball. Like it has to mean more than that, so that when the ball trickles through Bill Buckner's legs, entire portions of the country go, oh no, like it's a catastrophe, when all that happened was a ball rolled down a sideline. Like it doesn't matter in the big scheme of life. Why does a ball rolling down the line matter? Well, it's because it's more than that. And so you have to remember, for the people involved in these activities, that if you want to keep it as an activity that people care about, it has to mean more. And for fans, it usually does mean more because it's connected to your city. You grow up idolizing these players. You love it when they win championships. You're heartbroken when they lose championships. Like there's way more going on than just putting a ball through a hoop. Like who cares about watching tall dudes wear shorts and put a basketball into an iron hoop? It doesn't matter. But when you think of it as more than a sport, that's when it starts mattering. And so if all you're looking at basketball is a way to keep increasing revenue and try and expand your global market and try and sell sneakers and all that stuff, which is all fine. I'm pro business. That's part of the deal. I get it. But from a true enthusiasm standpoint, from a fan standpoint, from a culture standpoint, it has to be more than that. It has to be about your connection with your city. It has to be about you diving on the floor for a loose ball. It has to be about you playing defense. It has to be about you being a good passer because you want to get your teammate involved. It has to be about more than just putting a ball in a hoop. Like that's the least important part of it. And so that's what's happening too, is we're losing track of what sports truly mean to people. And as I've said, part of what it means to people is we love seeing people give their best effort. We love seeing people be tough because they care. We love seeing, that Larry Bird was identified kind of with the blue collar mentality of Boston. And we love seeing that Magic Johnson was identified with the flashy and entertaining value of Los Angeles. We like that it means something bigger than just, whether you can shoot threes or not. There has to be something more than that. So if basketball is going to remain relevant as and not just, oh, this is just something that these rich guys do, and it's just like any other TV show, and sometimes I watch, sometimes I don't, whatever. Like, if you want people to care about it and to really want to watch the All-Star game and to really want to watch the NBA Finals or the regular season, it has to be about something more, and the NBA has lost that. They think something more is, we need to have more celebrities sitting on the sideline. We need to have more comedians cracking jokes during the broadcast. It's like, no one cares about that stuff. It's so stupid. Get back to what people love about basketball. It's effort, it's skills, it's loyalty to a team. It's that you represent a city and the fan base. That's what people care about. And that you're trying to be the best every night. If you're not doing that, you're going to lose what the sport is. And that's where it's headed. So, for the All-Star game, if we're going to even zero in further, the All-Star game needs to be more than an All-Star game if it's going to remain an All-Star game. Okay? So what does that look like? Well, again, definitionally, what was the All-Star game when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s? Well, was it entertaining? Yeah. Okay. But it was a place where all the best players came together at one time. And I was lucky enough in the 80s and 90s where pretty much everyone on the court in an All-Star game is a Hall of Famer. That's nowhere near the case today. That's how much better players used to be, is that the best players in the league are in the Hall of Fame. Some of the best players that play right now, you're never going to hear about them after the next 5 years. They're going to disappear because they simply, frankly, aren't good enough, and they don't play hard enough. They don't win enough. So that's what's going to happen. So what was it? Well, it was the best players all coming together. You got to see guys who didn't play against each other on a regular basis have to go at it once in a while. You got guys who were, real rivals during the season have to play together as teammates. That was pretty fun. And it was a showdown it was like a challenge. Like, Michael Jordan is going to play against Magic Johnson today. Patrick Ewing is going to go against Hakeem Olajuwon today. And we're going to see the best players go against each other and show their skills and play really hard to try and win. And yeah, were they playing the same way they play in an NBA Finals game? No, probably not. But it was definitely heightened. It was definitely aggressive. There was definitely effort. They were running and playing real basketball, not just chucking up threes and letting everyone dunk. Were there fast breaks and dunks? Of course there were. Were there three-point shots? Of course there were. But it was within the flow of a real basketball game. And that's what people want to watch. They're like, yeah, I watch real basketball all season, or the first half of the season. And that's great because I love basketball and I love seeing these guys compete. But the All-Star game is a chance to watch regular basketball, but to see the best players all at the same time. What a treat that is. That they get to play real, normal basketball, and they're all the best at it. And now we get to see them clash. How fun is that? That's, what I grew up watching, and that's what we miss. Now, yes, all the best players in the NBA are there, if they choose to play, which LeBron didn't. Yet they're not actually playing against each other. And so we're like, yeah, it's cool seeing all these guys on the court at the same time, but if you're not playing real basketball, what are we doing here? What's the point of this? That you all just showed up on a purple court as an event? Okay, well, why do I need to stick around for 2.5 hours for that? I might check in and go, oh, what's going on here? Oh, there's my favorite player. Okay, cool. Oh, they're just kind of goofing around. All right, I don't care about that. I change the channel. So if it's going to remain an All-Star game, it has to mean more than just a silly game an exhibition game in the middle of a season. Because that's really what it is. Like, it doesn't mean anything. No one remembers who won whatever game 20 years ago. But in the moment, it means a lot. Well, if it doesn't mean a lot to the players, why should it mean a lot to us anymore? And that's what's happening. So a thing has to be more than a thing if it's going to stay a thing. That's a key rule to live by for any industry. And sports, and specifically basketball, are really struggling with that. Something else that I think about when I think about the old NBA and what I grew up with, and these amazing players and teams that I grew up watching. And this is kind of the literary aspect. This is the academic part coming in a little bit, but for what sports are stories, all right, not just the human interest stories, but like your team is living out a story. You as a player are living out a story. And those stories are really what we care about. Yes, we care about the individual doing amazing things, but beyond that, there has to be something bigger than that we care about. And so, from an NBA standpoint, through my lifetime or right before when I became, a kid who watched sports, it could have been the merger between the ABA and the NBA. And so the story was, will can, will the league benefit from this merger, and will the players from the ABA be as good as the players in the NBA? Will it change the game at all? And we get Dr. J. And Dr. J helps take the NBA to a new level, because now truly the best players are all playing in one league. And, he was this amazing talent who elevated the game from this kind of, not that it was always like this, but like slow down kind of, mostly white sport to this amazing athleticism and flair, but also this dignity, because Dr. J is a very classy guy. And you could be both. You could be the super classy guy with a huge afro flying through the air, dunking it, and everyone loved it. And the NBA started growing. And then the NBA had some troubles. And so it had this roller coaster down because of all the problems going on. And then these two guys from the Midwest called Irvin Johnson and Larry Bird are playing college. And everyone's interested in their college teams. And they play the most watched college game of all time. And then they both get drafted, and one goes to the East Coast and one goes to the West. And we wonder, will they ever battle again in the NBA Finals? And sure enough, they do. And so now we have this story of these guys who played against each other in college, who are incredibly skilled and have this flair, and they lead their teams. They're also good teammates in addition to being good individual players. And now, what will happen if they meet in the NBA Finals? And of course, they do several times in the 80s. So we have this story. And then, the Celtics start getting older and the Lakers start getting older. And then there's this brash new team that plays a different style. They're very rough and aggressive, and they play a different style of basketball. And will they take down one of those teams? And sure enough, the Detroit Pistons come along and take down the Lakers. And then we've got this heroic figure of Michael Jordan, who he's the most talented player, but he's stuck on a team that's not very good. And he and his team have to learn how to work together, and they have to face the mighty, scary Detroit Pistons, and they lose to them a bunch of times. When will they ever beat them? And they finally defeat the Dragon, the evil Detroit Pistons. Oh, but then their reward for defeating the Dragon is now they have to go up against the mighty Magic Johnson in the finals. So we have these two superstars, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and they're finally meeting to go together in this ultimate showdown of the NBA Finals. And then Michael Jordan and the Bulls win. And then we wonder, well, boy, the Bulls are really fun to watch, and they've got the best player, and now they're playing as a team, which is better than they were before. Can they keep winning? And sure enough, they do. And then, the storylines keep going from there. Michael Jordan quits basketball, and then he comes back, and can the Bulls get back to where they were? And, what about Hakeem Olajuwon and the Rockets? Are they going to challenge the Bulls eventually? Like, there's all these storylines that people were following. Yes, Michael Jordan was the catalyst for the 90s anyway, and Bird and Magic were the catalyst for the 80s. But it wasn't just about the individual players. Yes, we needed Dr. J and Magic and Bird and Jordan and then Kobe Bryant to keep the excitement going. But it wasn't just about the individual players, because people identify with their cities. They identify with teams, even if that's not their home city. They identify with a style of play. There's all sorts of things that people can latch onto based on the stories of those teams, of those players, of this league. And so we're left going, well, what's the story of the NBA right now? 18-year-olds getting $300 million contracts, that's the story we're all supposed to get excited about? Players switching teams every other year to go join a super team with no loyalty to their city or the team that drafted them, that was trying to build something. We don't care about that anymore. That's the story? Like, what am I supposed to latch onto? Yeah, there's still the players, and they're still really talented. But again, it has to be more than that. What is going to get not only the true sports fan, the true basketball fan, but also the casual fan who kind of just checks in every once in a while, or maybe they like football, but every once in a while they're like, oh, I'll see this NBA game, or the family of four that isn't really a sports family, but they just want to go enjoy an entertaining event. And so they think, I would like to go to a basketball game here in our home city. That would be great. What's going to draw those people in? Well, there has to be more than just dudes walking up and down a court, not playing defense and jacking up threes. That's not a story that anyone cares about. So what's it going to be? The NBA has to redefine itself. The All-Star game needs to redefine itself. The players on their teams need to redefine themselves and go, what do we stand for here? What are we from a definitional standpoint of what we're doing with this sport, but also from a protection of the game standpoint? Because all of those people I just mentioned, Dr. J had to build on the legacy of the people who came before him, like Bill Russell and those players of the past, of the 50s and 60s. And then everyone points to Dr. J as being the reason that they took the NBA to where it did. Magic and Bird and Michael all talk about Dr. J. And then, of course, Kobe Bryant talks about Michael Jordan. Like, everyone looks to these people and says, what did they do that was so special that made this game so great? And what can I do to make sure it stays great? Or even maybe gets better in some way? That would be awesome. Well, that's not what our current generation of players has done. LeBron James can say all he wants about whom he idolizes from the past. He's done nothing to help expand what's good about the game. The NBA Silver and those guys can say, well, we've grown the market, so now more people around the world like basketball. It's like, yeah, that started back in the 90s. That wasn't you. All right. Yeah, you've gotten television deals and stuff with social media now expands the reach and all that stuff. But like, that stuff happened from the 92 Olympics. That's what brought basketball to the world. So you didn't start that. So what have you done to strengthen the game and to make the playing of the game really competitive, a lot of effort, and really skilled? I don't know. When you watch players play, they have terrible footwork. They can do flashy stuff like flashy ball handling and passing, but they don't have good fundamentals. And if it's not a dunk or a three-pointer, they don't really know what to do. So what is that? That's not basketball, at least not how it is supposed to look, I would say. And I think other people would say too. So there's this, connection to stories and connection to history that we like to see played out. And we get interested because even if it's not a team I care about, I might be interested in the story. I was interested in the 2004 finals because I didn't like the Lakers. I liked the style of play of the Detroit Pistons, that team style, lots of passing, lots of really good defense and rebounding. And I rooted for them, even though I have nothing to do with Los Angeles or Detroit. So people will watch and get fascinated by and they'll increase their relationship with the sport of basketball if there's a story to latch onto. And part of what everyone should always be doing with whatever industry they work in is, or any interaction out in society you have, is you should leave the thing that you inherited better than you got it. When you go somewhere and there's trash on the ground, you should pick it up, because when you leave there, now it's cleaner than when you found it. That's a good way to go through life. If you work for a company, you shouldn't make the company worse while you're there. You should work in a way that the company and your colleagues and you all benefit, so that when you leave there, it's in a better shape than it was when you were first hired. That's the way everything should be in life. You should always aim to make everything better. Well, that hasn't happened in the last 20 years. The players of today, this generation of the last 20 to 25 years, took something that was the biggest thing in America. All right, basketball had pretty much surpassed football as America's new sports addiction. And now no one cares about basketball. All right, it's back to football. And football has its own problems too, but football is in a way better shape than basketball is. And baseball has faded away tremendously. So if these young guys who care about their legacy, and they think chasing championships by just getting on super teams is going to help them with their legacy, or just trying to score 1 million points is going to help them with their legacy, they also need to remember that part of your legacy is, how did you take care of the league? Because the league is collapsing. No one cares about this anymore. And it's on your watch. You did this. Charles Barkley's been talking a lot about that You players today, it's not the kids who just arrived 3 years ago. It's the guys who have been here for the last 15 to 20 years. Your generation has been in charge of the decline of our sport. And so the old guys, Barkley and Shaq and Magic and Bird and all these older players, they're like, yeah, what did you guys do to the sport we left you? It was great. And yeah, Michael Jordan retired. Yeah, we all of us top level players, yeah, we got old and retired. But we gave you something to take care of, and you haven't. So what are you going to do about that? Just keep asking for more money, not playing hard, taking days off, load management? Like, that's what we didn't leave you that. Why are you doing that? You're ruining the game we all love. And that's the feeling of not only the players, the older players, but the fans as well. And it's showing up in the numbers, in the viewership stats. Even Kevin Durant the other day had a tweet that was pretty interesting. He said, you shouldn't even watch the NBA anymore. He said that in a tweet. It's online. You can see it. You shouldn't even watch the NBA anymore. Like, can you imagine Magic Johnson ever saying, yeah, you shouldn't come watch the Lakers? You shouldn't, or Michael Jordan saying, yeah, you shouldn't come watch a Bulls game. You shouldn't tune in on the Chicago station to watch a Bulls game tonight. Yeah, go do something else. They would never say that. Why? Because they care about the sport and they want people to enjoy it. They want people to respect how hard they play and how much skill they have. And here's one of the greatest players of all time, Kevin Durant. I put him in the top 20 players of all time. He's the best mid-range jump shooter that's ever played, I think. Like, he's telling people, yeah, don't watch. This is stupid. That's where we are. Your generation is not only not preserving what was left for you, you're actively telling people, don't watch us because this is stupid. He said, this is in the wake, there was part of a Twitter conversation about the success of the NHL this week and how we can see how much the NHL players really care about the All-Star break and are playing really hard, and they care about their teams and their countries. And people are now starting to tune in more to hockey than to basketball, or at least getting more excited about it. And so someone asked him, well, why do you think that is? What should the NBA do? And his tweet said this. He said, for the betterment of your mental health and just overall well-being, just don't watch the NBA. Hockey right now has that aggression that you may like because they play hard. They also rarely get traded or go to new teams in free agency, so the loyalty aspect is there. Yeah. So your generation, Kevin, and all your buddies, it's pretty rich coming from Durant, considering he's jumped to a bunch of different teams. But like, yeah, that's what people miss. Playing hard, be loyal to your city and your organization that drafted you. Now, it doesn't mean you can never be a free agent, but like, try to work through the draft. Try to build a program. Try to have a good system in place and see how far you can get. It's that easy. And Kevin Durant is telling the world, yeah, the reason you shouldn't watch, don't even watch our game, and the reason why is there's no loyalty, and we just don't play that hard. So there you go. Don't watch us. That's how you're going to keep the game alive, huh? Again, a thing has to be more than a thing if it's going to stay a thing. Basketball is not going to be a thing if that's the attitude that's going around among players now, because the fans already think that, and now you're just confirming what we've already thought. And we'll see how long can the All-Star weekend last if that's your attitude? And then how much of a leap is it before we go, well, we didn't actually need the All-Star game, just take a couple weeks off, to maybe we don't need a whole season. Maybe we don't need professional basketball at all. Maybe none of it matters. Like, that's the progression that could happen if you're not going to take care of what was given to you. You know, the PGA is going through some of this right now. So it's not just team sports like basketball or baseball. You know, I'm wearing my golf hat and my Torrey Pines shirt. You know, for the last 10 years, I would watch golf every weekend, you know, because I'm sick of basketball and I don't watch much baseball anymore. So I was like, what else can I watch? I'd watch a lot of golf, and because I play a lot of golf, and it's enjoyable to watch these guys who are very highly skilled. And so no matter where they were playing, every week I'd watch at least some part of the tournament. Well, the last couple of years, since the live branch has emerged, I hardly ever watch golf now. Even though I'm an avid golf fan, I play, I enjoy, you know, when I can see them, I do enjoy it, but now I hardly ever watch. Why? Because I know each week the best players are not playing. They're not competing against each other. They're split. Half the best players are in one and half the best players in the other. So they're not actually at full competition. So I watch the majors because that's where everyone's involved. I watch, you know, the Ryder Cup and the team events. I'll watch still the main events that I like watching, like at Pebble Beach or Torrey Pines, or, you know, Waste Management, because it's right up the street from my house and I know that course well. And so it's like there's a few I still watch, but for the rest of the season, I just don't really care. because people aren't all in one place playing together and against each other and putting forth the full level of competition that golf should have. And so I don't watch. So you're losing your fans. And, again, the sport suffers. Yeah, the individuals prosper because they're all making millions. But the sport itself suffers. And like I said before, they're taking what was left to them by Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and Seve Ballesteros and Tiger Woods and all these great players that have left, that have grown the game and made it more interesting for the general public. And now it's like, who are we rooting for out here? Yeah, I like that player, but the other best player isn't even here. So why am I watching this? I want to see those two guys go at it on the leaderboard on Sunday. And they don't. So how do I know you're the best, actually? You're not even playing against the best competition. So it's harming the sport. I think there's one more thing that's useful to think about. And this is a bit recent, but I think it's really important that, as an English professor, I care about language a lot. And one thing that I've heard students say, and my players say over the last couple of years, is, they use the phrase try hard, and they use it as a negative. They make fun of people who give effort, and they go, "Oh, that guy's just a try hard. Look at him. It's ridiculous. Why is he doing that? He's making us all look bad. He's such a try hard." Like, a try hard is a name as an insult. And so that's what's happening. When you watch NBA basketball, especially the All-Star game, you see, oh, this is an entire generation where trying hard is uncool. That's how these people live their lives. That if you put forth effort, if you dive on the floor, if you hustle and play defense, if you really go after rebounds and are aggressive out there, you're going to get called a try hard. Like, why are you doing or you're so extra. Like, oh, putting forth a lot of effort is extra. It's trying too hard now, and you're going to get made fun of by your buddies because it's more important to just look cool and casual and, again, not do those little things that make basketball truly enjoyable, like playing really hard and, being all over the court. That's now an insult. So how do we go forward and increase competitiveness among these top level athletes if the thing that makes them so great is actually now an insult? The thing that makes you good is you actually work hard, you try hard, you try to be better. But now among them, trying hard is uncool. And after all, why should it be any other way? You can live a not try hard life and still make $500 million in your career. So yeah, why try hard? That's the world we live in now. Trying hard and putting forth effort is now an insult. And that has made its way to the NBA. We can see it. Again, it's just so crazy. In the last year or so, when I've watched the demise and I've gotten back into coaching, and so I'm around kids and helping them learn the game, and I go watch the old basketball games and compare to some recent games. Like, it's amazing. Go on YouTube and watch a random Tuesday night game in February from 1991 where the Bulls are playing whoever. And watch Michael Jordan on a random, this isn't a highlight package. This isn't like, oh, Michael's greatest games, he went for 55 tonight. No. A random game on YouTube. Pick any day, any season, whatever. Especially from the early 90s. And just watch Michael Jordan. Watch how hard he plays. He's everywhere. Again, this is a dude who by this time has already won a championship. He's already the most popular person. His brand is everywhere. He's made millions of dollars. He has nothing else to prove other than just to try to win. And he's all over the place. He's in help side. He's collapsing down to try and strip the big men. He's in the passing lanes. He's running the offense properly. Yeah, there's ISO ball sometimes where the shot clock's running down and he kind of just has to make a move. But like, he's all over the court like a real basketball player. This is Michael Jordan putting forth effort in a game that means nothing. A random game in an 82 game season that has no implications on whether they make the playoffs or not. It's just because he's out there and the fans are watching and he wants to be great. Now go watch any game from this year on a random Tuesday night and see how hard LeBron James plays. Watch him walk up and down the court. Watch any other player. I'm just picking on him. Watch all these guys just wander around. They don't play defense. They stop. They basically just go from 3-point line to 3-point line. They never get to the paint. It's not 94 feet of basketball. It's horrible. It's so slow and boring and awful. And they're shooting, 93 pointers a night between the two teams. It's ugly and boring. And yet you go back and watch an old game, and yeah, look, there's sloppy games. There's some games where players, it is a lot of ISO ball. You just dump it in the post and everyone kind of watches. But the best players didn't play like that. Go watch Magic Johnson. Go watch a Celtics game from 1984 and watch Larry Bird move around the court. I mean, it's amazing. Go watch the Detroit Pistons and watch Joe Dumars in the late 80s and early 90s. Like, these dudes are all over the place. They're playing what real basketball is. That is not what is on television now. And so the idea of a try-hard culture and how that went to being an insult, as opposed to when you hear interviews of guys back in the 80s and 90s and they were selected for the All-Star game, it was an honor and a privilege to be viewed as one of the best in the league, but also it was their chance to go put forth effort against their rivals and try hard to actually win, because there was a personal kind of accountability to it that, like, hey, I was chosen, I better go and perform out here. I don't want to look stupid because I'm lazy or I look unskilled against my competitors. I want to do a good job out here. I want to prove that I deserve to be on this all-star court. Yeah, trying hard was cool back then. Today, it's an insult. That's where we are with this generation. Lastly, that's sort of a bigger problem with basketball, not just the All-Star game, but basketball in general, is the money-ballification of everything. It's happened with baseball, and it's one of the many reasons I've really stopped watching baseball in the last 20 years. I don't want to sit there for 4 hours and watch dudes either strike out or hit home runs. Home runs aren't entertaining enough, and the strikeouts don't mean enough. So what am I watching this for? And I don't like watching pitchers only throw for 4 innings. That's stupid. That's not baseball. All right. So yes, I know your job is to go out and win, and your job as the general manager and the coach of whatever organization you're running, basketball, baseball, football, whatever it is to devise a strategy to win. Completely agree with that. That's totally fine. But we have to remember that there's more to the game than just winning. You also have to play the right way. And the right way gets back to what the definition of the game is. In my way of thinking, and what I think people from history would say, when I define baseball, I would say, again, baseball is a game where everyone, to a certain degree, has to be able to run, hit, throw, and catch. And so all of those parts of the game need to show up in a baseball game. And so stealing bases was really valuable. Bunting was really valuable. Being a slap single hitter was valuable. Being Tony Gwynn, who took pride in hardly ever striking out. And yeah, he could hit home runs, but he cared more about moving runners and hitting singles and doubles. That was more valuable to him. That is baseball from a definitional standpoint. Now, the goal is to take the definition of the athleticism and the skills of the game and tie it to trying to win. When all we've gone to is strikeouts and home runs, yeah, you're using that to win, which is nice, but the product of baseball is no longer what it was, and that's not good. Same thing in basketball. I understand that shooting threes is more valuable than shooting twos. Yeah, everyone knows that. Does that make it a better product to watch? No, it doesn't. Yes, in some cases it does, because we like watching Steph Curry because he's really, really good. But the other 99.99% of basketball players in the world are not Steph Curry. But we devise strategies to pretend that they are. And it makes the game boring. It's not fun sitting there. It's kind of like strikeouts and home runs. Yeah, the home run. Okay, it's nice when the guy hits the shot. But how many other times do they miss? That's what makes the game boring. So, yes, strategically, we all understand that that's what makes sense. But from what a game is, which is passing and driving and posting up and, yes, shooting from the outside, but also playing defense, you're not playing basketball as it was intended to be anymore. And I'm all for, look, there have been rule changes throughout history, and I'm all in favor. Look, the 24-second shot clock was a good rule change. The three-point line was a good rule change. There are things that have made the game better, and that's part, I talk about this in my sports class, part of being really in tune with the sport is that you can recognize when things need to adjust to make it better. And so adding the three-point line did make the game better because it added another element of strategy to the game. and it allowed other types of players to also be scorers. Again, they could before, but it placed a premium on it, or it incentivized other types of players, not just the tallest guys on the court, to also become scorers. And the defense would have to react to that. So that's great. It made strategy better, and it actually made the game more balanced, which is more fun. So I'm not against the changes of the rules. Those are good. But when we then exploit the rules to such a degree that now the game no longer becomes recognizable, well, now you've harmed the game. And the most important thing about the game is the game. Because if you don't have a game, or if the game isn't what it is supposed to be, you don't have a game anymore. And then we all suffer because we all miss the game. So we have to balance the definition of what the sport is with trying to also win it and devise strategies according to the rules that you can win. Well, that has just gotten so exploited that it's now no longer fun to watch. And so the thing you thought was going to make things better, which is, we're trying to win, which is fine, has actually made things worse. Because I don't want you to win if you play like that, because that's not the game anymore. I want teams to win who can do all of it. That's what I want to see. That's why, the Spurs back in the mid 2000s were considered kind of a boring team, because they were very fundamental, but they did everything. They shot from the outside and they could play on the inside. They could pass, they could run set plays, they could have isolations, they could do a bit of everything. And that's why I liked watching them play. The Bulls of the old team of the 90s, they did a bit of everything. You forget that a couple of their guys were good outside shooters. Michael Jordan played in the mid-range game and drove to the basket. They had guys who played down low. They ran a system, but they could also go one-on-one if they needed a basket at a certain point. They also played incredible defense. The Bulls in the 90s would press. Can you imagine LeBron James trying to press? Never. And yet, Michael Jordan, in the prime of his career, when, again, he's already won championships, he's already the best player, he has nothing to prove. He's out there with Scottie Pippen and Ron Harper and B.J. Armstrong or whoever was out there with him, pressing in an NBA game in the middle of a season that didn't matter. That's the difference. Those are the teams I want to watch. The teams that put forth the effort, that try hard for real. That's basketball. If a sport's going to stay a sport, it has to do several things from a definitional standpoint. It has to be fair and have no cheating involved. And we know that the players have to be playing at their full competitive level, at least close to it. You have to try. And where we're at in the culture is it's now cool to not be a part of things. Our brand and our image is more valuable than our team's success or winning or playing the right way. And again, the things that have been really valuable to this culture over the last however many decades are going to start withering away. And that's not good, because those things are important to me. They're important to millions of people out there. And we would like to all be able to cheer for these players and these teams again. But there's a few rules you have to live by. And right now, the NBA especially isn't doing that. And it's sad to see. So there you have it. Sorry for that long rant. A bit of a divergence from my normal academic discussions. But if you're want to hear more about my philosophy of sport, please check in with my course that I've posted that's available for people. And keep checking back here on English Champion. There's always more to come. See you next time.